Day of reckoning has arrived for the Sieghart family's little monsters. This so-called judgment ceremony is an elitist show, revealing the true potential of these brats and which element they'll command. The results will determine if they're talented and worthy of that grand family name, a family feared as the world's most psychopathic swordsmen and aura users. When the first child approaches that giant stone sword, the stone glows with a green aura. So the kid has the wind element, and his mana is above average. Good for him. When the next girl arrives, the sword glows even brighter with a blue light, and everyone cheers, shouting that another genius has joined the family. It's finally Raon's turn, and the stern family leader invites him forward. But when Raon touches the sword, what emerges is nothing but a dim, pathetic white light, the lowest level possible. People start giggling and mocking, but the head of the family tells them to shut up and quickly ends the ceremony. But when everyone leaves and only he and his servant remain in the hall, things get strange. That giant sword is glowing again. But this time, with the legendary, blazing golden flame of the Sieghart family founder, a power so fierce it can melt anything. This situation even shocks that cold-hearted leader. How much for the Raon? Raon's power will skyrocket, but the great Patrick is sleeping. He has no idea who the kid is. This brat was actually someone who died through his master's betrayal and was reborn. It's none other than that legendary assassin. The Shadow Group's most psychopathic killer faces off against his master on a freezing night. With Derus Robert. Turns out the master noticed Raon broke free from his leash and wants to know how it happened. Robert Tennessee is a sick place that turns kidnapped children into emotionless killing machines, and Raon escaped mind control by pure luck during a mission. When Raon asks the Russin how he knew, the man explains that every assassin walks around with two leashes. One is mind control, and the other is a whole different trouble. Right then, a sharp pain stabs through Raon's chest, and Derus reveals the second collar. An anger worm implanted in their bodies. A disgusting curse that devours the target's heart the moment its master commands. While the worm gnaws at his heart, Raon vows not to die like a dog and to leave at least a scratch on Derus. He pushes himself to attack, but his head is instantly severed from his body. Still, he is surprised that Raon managed to wound him. He orders the other assassins to throw this dead dog in the trash and leaves. Raon's fading consciousness burns with pure rage as he remembers the life Derus stole from him. With his final breath, he begs any god or demon to give him a chance for revenge. As if waiting for this exact moment, that cheap necklace around his neck begins to glow, and a strange screen appears before him. He tells her she was chosen by an entity called Rage. Unfortunately, before the rage can settle into his body, his frame fails and he dies, cutting the process short. Some time later, a young woman plays with her baby, whom she nicknamed Sunshine. This new baby was reincarnated into the family of this woman named Sylvia. It's none other than our Raon, and the funny thing is, he still carries all the memories of his assassin days in his head. Everything seems incredible to her. At first, he thought it was a dream, but when he couldn't wake up, he had to accept the reality of being reborn in that tiny baby body. Her mother rattles on cheerfully, complaining that the master of the house hasn't returned yet to give it a proper name. But she's unaware that the baby understands everything she says. It's unclear why the man is so late for Raon. It's been about 100 days since he was born, and it's clear as day that the family he was born into is both wealthy and highly prestigious. For him, being born into a family like this is like hitting the jackpot. Because that scumbag is going to need every resource he can get to take revenge on Derusta. Since he hasn't left the building since birth, he can't quite gauge where he is or his position in this family. To make matters worse, with that tiny body, he can't master the fire ring technique. So Derust needs to put his revenge plans on hold for a while. Soon after, a maid named Helen bursts in and tells Lady Sylvia that the master of the house has returned. The poor woman is rushing to get ready, but it's too late. Because that scary lord is already entering through the main gate. The aura coming from the man is so heavy that the moment Sylvia calls him father, Raon instantly realizes who he is. It looks like this man is his grandfather. Based on his facial features, this man is none other than Glenn Sieghart. The Northern Lord of Destruction, that terrifying man at the continent's peak. Turns out he's been reincarnated into the country's most psychotic and powerful family. Finally, Lord Glen names the baby Raon, after the boy from his past, and warns him to live quietly as if he didn't exist. Late that night, Raon, finally free from sudden baby naps and playing with his mom, is overjoyed to be alone, fueling his drive for revenge to practice the Ring of Fire. While common losers on this continent draw mana from nature to store in their cores, our kid's flame ring technique rewrites the rules. Forming circular rings around the heart, it pushes endurance and focus to the limit. It's literally like a cheat mode for the Julian world. Plus, it's got another great perk for warriors. Even monster-level transcendents like Derus fall for this technique without sensing a thing. All our little guy needs to do is gather energy through the fire rings and master the Sieghart sword technique. That way, the plan to get revenge on Derustin will work like clockwork. But there's one tiny problem, no bigger than a gnat bite, that being, the mana veins in his new body are clogged with a deadly cold that chills him to the bone. Realizing about 9 veins are paralyzed, he knows he's about to kick the bucket at any moment. His only choice is to force open those clogged vessels using flame rings. After meditating and pushing himself for so long, our boy yields to his infant body and loses the battle against sleep. But as luck would have it, passing out saves his life. Because Lord Glen sneaks into the room to check on his sleeping grandson, and discreetly releases a bit of aura onto it. The next morning, he starts his embarrassing baby talk routine again. He has to do a crawling show every day to impress his mother, and say goo goo gga outside while a grown man is inside. It really gets on one's nerves. The poor guy would have preferred suffering in that freezing cold for another minute over being treated like a baby. Then Lady Sylvia's door knocks, and in walks that legendary figure from Raon's old memories, the Ragged Saint. This man's divine power and medical knowledge are beyond mortal comprehension. He's a legend known as the continent's greatest healer. After the small talk, Aziz tells Sylvia that as soon as he heard about the baby, he rushed right over. She says the baby looks like her mother and is a total sweetheart, unlike her grumpy grandfather, slyly throwing shade. When he hears Lord Glen name the baby Raon, meaning shadow, his face drops, and he wonders what the old man is plotting. Judging by her tone, there's a close intimacy between Lord Glen and this scruffy-looking genius, as the rumors confirmed. After examining Rayanu, Aziz drops a bombshell, saying the boy has a cursed illness called the frostbite of pain. His mana veins are frozen with ice. It's nearly impossible for him to be a swordsman. If left untreated, he won't be a guest in this world for much longer. In shock, Sylvia denies the truth, but Aziz ignores her protests and says he'll get medicine for the child. Just then, a servant enters and announces that the Lord wishes to see the saint. When Aziz leaves the room, Ralph feels relieved that he at least learned his illness's cool name. Just as he sets a treatment plan in his mind, he flinches at a warm drop falling on his cheek. When he looks up, he sees his mother, that strong woman, breaking down in sobs and screaming that this can't be real. Sylvia finally pulls herself together and whispers to her baby that she'll never let him die like this. Raon, a killing machine for years, feels a strange ache in his heart that he's never tasted before. While wondering what's happening to him, he realizes he can't stand Sylvia's crying. He reaches out with his tiny hand to comfort his mom and wipes away her tears. And for the first time, he calls her mom. And that final word is the last straw. Lady Sylvia bursts into the room where the Lord and Sieghart are talking, despite the servants' protests. The Lord is furious at the sudden raid, but the woman swallows her pride and begs her father to save her son. Sylvia kneels before Lord Glen, pleading for him, but his response is ice cold. There was no benefit to the clan in saving a brat who would never become a warrior. Even though Sylvia reminds him that the boy she's talking about is his own grandson, the old man refuses to back down and orders the guards to throw his daughter out. As the woman is being dragged away, Ragged Aziz can't help calling the Lord a stubborn old fool. It turns out the Lord knew the truth the moment he saw the boy and called the saint to the palace, yet he still wore that cruel mask toward his daughter. Lord Glen doesn't even deign to answer, he just asks for the report. Aziz explains the situation. The boy's mana veins are blocked. Growing up like this is no different from a ticking time bomb. Lord Glen snuck into the room that night and used his aura to suppress the cold, so Raon will pull through for now. But that doesn't mean he can be a warrior. Surprisingly, the Lord catches us off guard by saying he doesn't have to be a warrior, as long as he's breathing. But Aziz doesn't miss the chance. And she calls him out for playing the tough guy to hide his massive love for his grandson. Why do you think our grandfather Glenn gave him a name that means shadow? Turns out this name meant the exact opposite years ago. What an irony. Days later, Sylvia pours the healing potion left by that scruffy saint down Rao's throat. Our boy is happy because that fire-based potion is pulsing through his veins, pushing back the icy cold of death. Years fly by like water, and Raon is already a 5-year-old brat. Then, that familiar notification sound. Beep beep. The system announces the completion of the second ring of fire. This means that their spirit level, mana attunement, focus, and stamina are leveling up.
Yeah.
That news is music to my ears, honestly. Our little guy suspects his inhumanly fast growth is thanks to those system messages constantly ringing in his head. This cheat screen, which only he can see, appeared right after his birth and keeps giving him constant status reports. Looking at the stats, the only issue is that your pathetic durability still hasn't seen any real change. Oh, and that curse. Even if he reached the second level, getting this far is entirely thanks to the miracle of those potions. And of course, with the suffocating love of his mother and Helen the maid, it feels like his development is moving at a snail's pace. But calm down, champ, you're only 5 years old, and you have time to get ready. After all, he was the greatest assassin of the past. With his past life experience, and the supreme flame cultivation technique, overshadowing his flaws will be effortless. Especially once Sieghart's master swordsmanship, no one will be able to stop him. He knows very well that his greatest weapon is patience. No need to rush sending Derus, one of the continent's strongest, to his grave. Losing yourself would be foolish. Revenge is a dish best served cold, after all. Then her mother comes to dress her up because there's a very special place to go today. Today is the big day. The selection ceremony. To understand the situation, you need to know the powers that balance the continent. These powers are divided into 6 overlords and 5 demons. Luckily for her, she's been reincarnated into the house of one of those lords. While 6 high lords create a positive impact and maintain order on the continent, demons are busy threatening the peace. The purpose of the selection ceremony is to separate the diamonds from the pebbles, and today the stage belongs to House Sieghart. When they arrive at the venue, the nobles in the hall look at Sylvia and her son with disgust, as if looking at an insect. That disgusting look of contempt on their faces. They're saying unspeakable things about that poor woman and Rao's health. They even go as far as calling him a monument of failure. Some are babbling that it's unfair to let the child of a failure join the ceremony. But Sylvia ignores them and walks on with her head held high. Raon, however, is affected by these poisonous words. While his mother tells him not to look at them and to focus only on her, his lordship finally arrives. Raon sees his grandfather for the first time in 5 years. The moment the lord takes the throne, that massive sword called the selection sword crashes into the center of the room as if piercing through the ceiling. And the lord begins the ceremony. This special sword is like a detector that instantly reveals the full mana potential of anyone who touches it. The first victim is a boy named Buren from the Sieghart family. He is the first one invited to the stage. If you're wondering why these ceremonies are done on kids, it's because the soft spots on a child's skull start to close at age 4. And their mana potential would be sealed at that moment. The whole point of the ceremony is to find out the children's full potential early on. The moment Buren puts his hand on his sword, everyone around starts sucking up to him. Because the light from the sword lights up everything like a disco ball. The light quality is top tier. Nothing less was expected from Lord Caro's son, they said, praising the boy to the skies. Next up is Runin, the Ice Queen candidate of House Sloane. The thing is, the purity of mana is shown by how bright the sword glows, while the element is shown by its color. When Runin takes the test, he's also declared a genius because of his brilliant results. People keep flattering him, saying this was expected of Sloane anyway. For Raon, it's clear, this crowd is just shallow people who worship results. With Kendi's mana veins still frozen, he thinks the result won't be very promising. Despite the second ring of fire, his expectations remain low. And when it was Raon's turn, as she steps forward with her mother, that noble crowd casts disgusting and demeaning glares at her. When they reach the sword, Raon decides that keeping expectations high would be foolish. All that's needed is to find out which element will be better for him to work with later on. He doesn't want anything more. The moment Raon put his hand on the sword. What is that? A strange fire erupts from the sword, fascinating yet equally terrifying. Suddenly, a vision of terrifying monsters appears before your eyes, with a young warrior standing in their midst. Watching intently, he's confused, trying to figure out what this vision means. As the monsters tower over the young warrior, the warrior suddenly raises his flaming sword and strikes the ground so hard that an explosion erupts from that single move. It covers the entire area and destroys everything in its sight, tearing it down to atoms. After this terrifying scene, Raon comes to his senses and sees the element appearing on the sword. For some reason, the sword shows something nobody expected. The view is completely different from what you saw in your vision. A light leaks from the sword, but it's so faint it doesn't even reach halfway up the blade. While the townsfolk mock the boy's dim light, Lord Glen watches silently, like a statue. With a mother's heart, Sylvia consoles Raon, saying, "Well done, my son," and they return to their seats. Meanwhile, people whisper and laugh behind their backs, talking about how someone from the noble Sieghart bloodline could stay at such a pathetic level. On top of that, they're insulting Sylvia, dissing her for leaving her son with nothing but blonde hair and red eyes. Before long, Grandpa Glen silences the crowd, telling them to cut it out and asking why they're making such a fuse in the holy hall. Once the dust settles, the Lord declares the ceremony over. Once everyone disperses, Lord Glen and his loyal steward are left alone with that mysterious court sword. Lord Glen says Rao's case is completely hopeless. Then, a flame like hellfire suddenly erupts from that dull sword, catching the Lord completely off guard. The flames engulf the sword, reaching such a peak that everything they've seen during the ceremony pales in comparison. Lord Glen gazes in fascination, noticing the light is a golden yellow that would make even the sun jealous. They're checking the records, and this crazy light was last seen at the ceremony for the cigarette company's founding grandfather. A burst of divine and feral aura is erupting, fierce enough to melt the very ice of the demon realm. It seems this golden mana has appeared only once in the entire history of Sieghart. So its reappearance now comes as a total shock. After watching that blindingly beautiful light for a while, the Lord realizes it's Raon's doing, but he just can't wrap his head around it. Exactly 7 years after the trial, Rao's stats finally appear in the system window. The curse is still on him, fitness is 0, mana ability is trash, but the rascals developed a resistance to water. This also reduces that stiffness in your arms and legs. About to finish the 3rd ring of fire, and he's only 12 right now. After a while, his mother reminds him that they need to go to the next ceremony of the day. Based on past experience, our boy isn't thrilled because he knows he'll have to deal with those toxic types and their nonsense again. Shortly after arriving there, the trial for the newcomers finishes in a flash. Raon says this year's ceremony felt like it went by at the speed of light. Just as he was about to flee, the Lord calls him over and demands to know why he hasn't responded to the basic training summons sent a month ago. Clearly Rao isn't even aware of the training. His mother jumps right in to save the day. Turns out the woman got the cure but didn't tell her son. She's begging the Lord, pleading that Raon isn't like other kids and can't handle this training because of that ice curse in his body. But Lord Na is standing his ground. He says this is Sieghart land, so no favors for anyone with that surname, and no right to refuse. By Lord Glen's logic, those who can't walk must crawl to training, because that's what being a Sieghart Raon requires. Shocked by these words, the woman says she won't accept these terms. Lord then calls the bluff, asking if you plan to leave the house like last time. If they don't follow the Sieghart rules, he shows them the door. Like sharks smelling blood, Sylvia's talk of leaving. It becomes fodder for those gossips again, as they start whispering about how the woman left the house. Raon hates seeing her mother get pushed around as usual. Those whispers reveal why they hold such a grudge against the woman. Because he had left the house. Not only did he desert Sieghart, but despite mastering their swordsmanship, he shattered his own power center and mana circuits, which is why he has no aura. She did it all to marry the man of her dreams, but the poor guy died while Raon was still in the womb. After this loss, the woman had no choice but to return home, to where it all began. Because when he returned, his family treated him like a traitor. She turned her back on her place in the main family. Despite all this, Raon has no intention of joining those vultures and hurting his mother. Because he's a son, and he can't stand seeing his mother treated this way. Suddenly our little one jumps forward and decides to have a word with the Lord. Despite all his mother's objections, he informs the Lord that he will join the training next month as ordered. This surrender is being challenged by a man named Sieghart, the head of a nearby elder's palace. Is acting up, saying he didn't know about this and that Rao shouldn't think basic training is a walk in the park. Raon is determined to join the training, not just for the name, but because of that stubborn streak. Sieghart wants to live up to his name, but the Lord isn't keen because that surname's weight is measured in tons. Lord Glen mercilessly unleashes his bone-crushing aura upon the boy, causing blood to pour from his mouth. The situation is very clear for Raon. This crushing, breathtaking pressure is far stronger than even his old master Derus, and he clenches his fists to endure the pain. But when he collapses, unable to withstand this divine pressure any longer, his mother and faithful servant Helen rush to help in a panic. Danyard intervenes and begs the Lord, pleading for him to withdraw his spiritual power, saying Ryo is just an ignorant child who doesn't know the weight of his words. But the Lord doesn't even hear any of these pleas. With an icy look, he silences everyone and orders them to let the boy speak. Sylvia, her heart in her mouth, keeps pleading like a mother tiger, shouting that her son is in no state to be educated. He's practically begging her to pull back her aura. Raon, slumped in his mother's arms, recalls his dark days as an assassin in his past life. That stealthy killer living in the shadows, never revealing its presence, sees the past flashing before their eyes. The deep disappointment building up inside makes her slip away from her mother's safe arms. Because in this new life, he has to carve out a better, more honorable path for himself. Another motivation keeping him going is the desire to restore his mother, Sylvia, to her former, glamorous, and well-deserved position. Once again, despite his trembling legs, he walks toward the Lord and admits that, having grown up in the annex, he knew nothing of the weight the name Siegfried carries. He boldly declares that his plan is to join this brutal training and experience firsthand what kind of hell this place really is. The deep sense of responsibility Sylvia feels for Helene and all those poor souls helping her in the annex weighs heavily on her shoulders. He nudges him while making his defense before the Lord. Intrigued by this courage, the Lord asks the boy that crucial question. He condescendingly asks if you intend to judge the quality of the name Siegfried based solely on that simple basic training. Raon calmly confirms that this is your only option, that there's no other way out. In return, Lord Glen promises to order the instructor to provide the absolute most brutal preparation. That way, Raon won't be disappointed. Raon staggers as the overwhelming weight of the Lord's aura crashes down on him once more. The only thing on his mind is how to combine his legendary assassin experience from his past life with the power of the flame rings, and how to stand tall even while fallen in this cursed house. He vows to prove to them all that the pebble they despised will turn into a rock more solid than they could ever imagine. Meanwhile, at a training center, current Siegfried, head of the warrior palace, talks intelligence gossip with the guard. The fact that the intel about Ray being a bedridden cripple turned out to be wrong has really gotten on his nerves. The guard, meanwhile, defends the intelligence he received. He says the servants in the annex overheard Scruffy Aziz and Lord Siegfried's conversation and can swear the boy has a fatal illness. Karun knew the boy was in bad shape when he saw him, but that doesn't explain how the brat endured the Lord's terrifying aura during the ceremony. The only logical explanation he can think of is that Sylvia's potential truly is superior, and those genes were passed to the child. As a result, Curran gives the order to the guard. Tell the servants to plant a spy in the annex. He wants to know every little thing going on there. While these schemes unfold, Raon is working himself to the bone as usual. And his mother keeps reminding him that she warned him about it. A moment later, number 5. The Siegfried training ground welcomes Lord Glen, who has come to speak with lead instructor Lemaire. Of course, she finds the trainer pretending to sleep. After waking him up, the two old friends start bickering like grumpy old men. It seems their bond goes way back. Lord Glen, he's accusing Lemaire of not maturing even a bit in 50 years. Actually, the guy's right, because he's an elf and doesn't just grow old and die like humans do. Lemaire immediately realizes he came for Lord's grandson and blunts out that the boy's mother was just here. And Lord Glenn says that since he gave him absolute authority here, he won't ease the training program one bit, no matter whose grandchild the kid is. But he's in for a big surprise. The Lord didn't come to beg mercy for his grandson. Instead, he wants the standards maintained or even raised. He says he must weed out the weak links who aren't worthy of training. The only thing occurring to Lemaire is that Lord Glenn is doing this because he truly loves his grandson, and is trying to transfer that twisted love he couldn't show Sylvie to him in this strange way. In response, Lord Glenn states in a cold and threatening voice that he would have already taken his head if they weren't former brothers in arms. After this productive chat, Lord Glenn leaves the training ground, leaving Lemaire wondering what all the fuss about this kid Raon is for. Meanwhile, Raon 3. He successfully completes the flame ring. His body and soul level up, as his stamina and dexterity soar. With mana harmony focus and energy rising, its water resistance hits 3 stars, leveling up just like a game character. Another great advantage is that one more piece of that damn frost curse is gone. The message from the system makes you happy. It's clear she achieved this with her mother's help, not by working herself to death, but by working smart and hard. That strange magic status window also seems to help speed up his growth, making things easier. But all these achievements are merely a light warm-up compared to the hellish training that awaits in Siegfried. He doesn't even realize the real nightmare hasn't started yet. That massive, 3-star ring of fire is actually nothing more than a solid foundation for Rao to build a grand palace upon. His plan is so simple yet so brutal. To shut the mouths of those fools who mocked him forever with his superior achievements, and of course, to bury his arch-nemesis Derus Robert into history. Just as he's deep in these bloody plans, in the middle of the night, his mother silently slips into his room. He's heading off to that hellish basic training tomorrow, and the poor woman is losing her mind with worry, eating herself up inside, asking, "Son, maybe don't go, they'll push you too hard." She knows he won't stop even if he's in pain, and she's terrified he'll get injured. She's looking with pleading eyes, asking to wait just one more year. But Rao's answer is clear, never. Because he can't stand the glares of the main family, and those arrogant side branches anymore. That vile treatment, and those condescending attitudes toward the people in the annex. He believes that if Rao puts on a show in the training, he can end all this cruelty. His mother is deeply shocked by her son's profound maturity, and his ability to grasp the gravity of the situation at such a young age. To explain why they're in this state and treated like trash, he takes a deep breath and opens the dusty pages of the past. The woman starts to tell. She fell for an ordinary knight by chance during a mission, and fate had already run its course. But back then, people paid a price for love. Since the man wasn't noble, he burned everything just to follow his love. He destroyed his mana circuits with his own hands, crushed his core, and abandoned his family. Turns out Rao even has an older sister named Black. While living happily with her husband and daughter, that psycho group called Heaven's Crew identified them and raided their home. She was pregnant then, and since her husband wasn't strong enough to move mountains, the poor souls were completely helpless. He had to watch his family being brutally slaughtered before his very eyes. But his father's secret team came and saved him at the last minute. The distance was too far, so the team arrived late. When they got there, only blood and tears remained. Her husband and daughter are already dead. When staying alone became dangerous, she desperately had to return to that house she hated. So that's the story of how the Sieghart grain became the scapegoat. When he returned, his head was bowed and his pride was broken. He didn't even have a single excuse to give his father. When Raon hears the story, he solves it with cold logic, of course. The woman literally sold out her family for her own pleasure, threw her responsibilities away, and then came back once she missed her comfort. Coming back just to survive clearly explains why the Siegharts treat him like a bug. But still, she's the first woman who gave Raon life and let him taste love through 2 lifetimes. So he doesn't have the luxury of hating on her. He can't treat his mother like the others, that would be ungrateful. Right then, he asks an unexpected question. "Do you regret leaving home?" The woman says no. Turns out Sieghart felt invisible, so he had a drink. But after escaping, he felt human again, felt like he was breathing. Even this was enough for him. He was happy then, and he's happy now because he has Rao. Her only worry was not being a mother worthy of her son. Raon puts her mind at ease, saying, "Don't worry about it. I'm here now, so don't be afraid." When Sylvia suddenly starts sobbing, our guy is surprised but comforts her and sends her back to her room. After calming her down, he finally returns to his room for his main job, controlling the Ring of Fire. After all, there's training tomorrow. Just as he's focused, a strange, ghostly presence appears in the room. "Monster! My seething rage has summoned me. The time has come." With that, he starts laying down the law. His name was Anger. The second ruler of the demon world has come with an oath of revenge. He's obsessed with ours. He smelled that immense scent of rage radiating from Raon, presenting the terms. "Give me your body and soul, and I will take your revenge." But what is that? The demon is shocked to see that the one who summoned him is just a brat. Rionda is just as shocked. They both stand there staring at each other. "Who the hell are you?" The staring contest begins. Anger can't believe at first that this little shrimp is spreading so much hate. But after looking closer, he realizes the truth and changes his mind. "Fine," he says. "I accept you, kiddo." He wants your soul in exchange for revenge. But Rao's response is a slap in the face. "No thanks, I don't need your help. Did you really think I'd let you have the pleasure of taking that bastard's head with my own hands?" With that, he snaps back at the demon. The entity gets serious instantly. "Kid, I think you misunderstood. This is not a negotiation table. Did we come from the demon world? Our decision is made. I'll take what I want, even by force." Saying that, he's going crazy. Cold flames engulf the room. It's lunging at Rao like a maniac, trying to forcefully possess his body. Under the impact of the blow, the child's mind and body instantly begin to freeze. And the demon whispers, "Accept me. Even if it's a god, let's destroy whoever stands in your way. Let's kick up some dust." He's trying to fan the flames of anger from within. Raon can handle the cold, but this is on another level. The demon doesn't just freeze. He sneakily fuels the hatred and anger within the child, getting into his mind. That damned spirit keeps provoking Raon. He says if he surrenders his body, he'll eat his enemies like snacks. But Raon suspects Sylvia's safety if she accepts this crazy being into her. Or she fears something might happen to the servants. The entity finally loses its patience, stating it's been polite and tried not to harm your body, but is now bored of playing games. Now he says he's going to devour him directly. Under the weight of the increasing pressure, it feels as if Raon is about to shatter into a million pieces. His body is reaching its limits. Just as he's about to collapse, a bright idea hits him. He will use the Ring of Fire to lighten the burden on his mind and body. After all, his resistance to cold has protected him until now. It looks like this is the only way he survives, and our boy is stoking the Ring of Fire. A blinding light bursts from the body, and the soul goes into shock. The anger of a simple human child. It drives them crazy that they can't handle the pressure. Raon insists he'll take revenge with his own hands and won't lose his body to a ghost. When our boy calls him a ghost, he flies into a rage, asking how he could disrespect the ruler of the demon world. Raon smirks, saying he's not much of a demon king since he couldn't even beat him, making the entity even more furious. Thinking about it, he can't use the full power of his rage because he just woke up, exactly like he said. Suddenly a screen appears before them, announcing that a new ability Raon knew nothing about has been unlocked. The appearance of system windows further fuels the anger of those claiming it's their own power and invention. Raon asks if these messages and status windows have anything to do with him. He says they created the system themselves. He's probing Rao to find out why the system was created, but anger keeps the secret guarded. But when Rao asks if the system was built to speed up growth, the entity slips up, realizing Rao can't hide the soul's emotions, just as expected from someone named Rage. It looks like the Ring of Fire's effects are stronger than in Rao's previous life. Because that's exactly what it was made for. To accelerate growth. As Rage demands he surrender his body or return the system, Raon tries to hit him with a man-infused punch, but even that doesn't work. Realizing that bringing the boy to his knees would be futile, Rage wraps itself around his hand and turns into a bracelet. He's doing this because the seal was broken recently and his true power hasn't returned yet. His plan is to wait patiently for his strength to return and reclaim his rightful place. Raon's thinking about taking off the bracelet, but it doesn't seem like a great idea. Because it could cause the system to disappear or the spirit to harm Sylvia or Helene. It feels like a much smarter idea to keep the soul close and keep it under control as it grows. Raon also asks why he turned into a flower bracelet, given all the things that cause anger. Wrath insists this was his own choice, and Raon has no choice but to respect that. The next day, Lady Sylvia is nervous about Rao leaving, and Helen tries to comfort her. When Raon steps outside ready to leave, a clear sadness shows on the women's faces. Before leaving, Helen reminds Raona not to overexert herself, and she promises to be careful. After a brief pout, Sylvia finally bids Rao farewell, asking him to do his very best. Once he leaves, Sylvia wants some reassurance from Helen that her baby will be okay, and the maid reminds her that Rao's health has greatly improved and he can complete the training. His words comfort Sylvia, for she had wept bitterly inside when Raon promised not to overexert or harm himself. A short while later, a few children gather at the entrance of Training Ground 5 and start chatting away. Meanwhile, Raon stands by himself, thinking that the training ground holds not just direct and branch family members, but also vassal families and recommended outsiders. Before long, some boys start gossiping about Rao's thin arms and mockingly ask why he doesn't just ditch the training. They even make fun of the flower bracelet she's wearing, and her rage boils over. The spirit starts cursing the children, but luckily, they can't hear her at all. Raon goes to them as soon as he hears their bickering and asks why they don't say it to his face instead of buzzing like mosquitoes. They're surprised, but they immediately get defensive and wonder how a child from the side family locked in the annex could talk to them like that. Do you know the funniest part of it all? This type comes from some side branch but acts as if they're from a royal bloodline, all high and mighty, and you have the nerve to step up and think you're good enough to talk to us? They're groveling, playing hierarchy games as they see fit. As the tension in the room peaks, one of the extras gets fired up, grabs Rao by the collar, and tries to put him in his place. Raon wears that famous psychopath smirk, and just as he's about to crack his knuckles and finish the guy, another kid steps in. The one who arrived is the main family's golden boy, Sieghart, that genius kid who put on a show during the test before our boy. Ben scolds these fools and gives them a piece of his mind for their thoughtless behavior in front of the guests. When asked if they're trying to ruin the family's image in front of guests, the kids back down instantly. They quickly apologize and tuck their tails. Ben continues where he left off, walking toward Raon with that familiar condescending look. He arrogantly mocks him, asking if he knows his place, and claims he's just a speck of dust Rao can blow away any time. He's threatening Raon that if she doesn't want to be kicked out of this annex too, she must bow her head and obey. In Ben's narrow-minded view, the only reason Raon is at the training ground is that he's a parasite exploiting the chaos of the selection ceremony. According to him, Raon doesn't have a shred of talent. Just a pathetic monument to failure, waiting to be kicked out of training. While the others back off, Ben keeps spitting his venom, and since he has no chance of passing anyway, Raon tells him not to strain himself and just get lost. Unfazed, Raon scoffs, telling Ben he needs to put a little more feeling into all that nonsense he just spat out. She slaps the kid with a harsh reminder that being from the main family doesn't make him as important as he thinks he is. No rank, not even an intern. So he's stressing that Raon has zero authority to command him and is playing with him like a cat plays with a mouse. He cracks a joke, saying her only chance is to go cry to her father. When Ben turns red as a tomato and drops that classic, "How dare you!" line. Instructor Rimmer kicks the door open and finds it amusing that the brats are at each other's throats before training even starts. Raon doesn't know who the instructor is, but he instantly recognizes the legendary light sword user who retired due to a damaged core. Rimmer tells the crowd to disperse and save their fighting energy for after the ceremony. At the ceremony, Rimmer introduces himself, but that uncanny glint never leaves his eyes. It looks like 160 people joined this training, and since that's too many for him, he announces he'll cut the crowd down to a quarter with a test. When the kids realize they'll be kicked out on the very first day, they start to tremble with fear. In an icy voice, Rimmer declares that he is the law in these parts and his word is the command. He says anyone with a complaint can go cry to their family head, calls their bluff, and immediately starts the endurance test. The brats are starting to run on the track. The rule is simple: you run full speed until your lungs burst, or until Rimmer says stop. Vrat, the king of wrath, keeps nagging again, asking why Rao is crawling at the very back instead of moving to the front. But Rao has many schemes running through his head. This isn't a race, so there's no point in passing the others. He already realized the instructor looks for who has the will to stand until they drop, rather than superficial speed. Sure that the last person standing will be the winner, Raon keeps the pace, determined to go all the way. Seeing Bun and Wan running in the lead, the assistant instructors praise how bright these brats' futures are. When they notice the notorious Raon, they see he's struggling to keep up. But they think even this is a success for someone who's sick. They predict Raon's battery will soon die and fall, but Rimmer's eyes are fixed on Raon like a predator watching its prey. Strange things are going through Rimmer's mind because he's never met a kid like Raon in his entire life. Even the continent's strongest couldn't gauge his depth at times, but this boy's case is a complete mystery. He can see the colors and threads of how the other children will become warriors, but when he looks at Raon, he sees nothing but a void. There's only one explanation for this: the potential of the person in front of them. It's big enough to exceed and shatter Rimmer's limits of perception. The types mocking Raon giggle among themselves, looking back and saying he won't last another 10 minutes. Raon looks surprised at this moment. He can't understand why this so-called hell training is nothing more than just running around aimlessly. In their past lives, hungry monsters were unleashed, and they'd run until their lungs burst just to survive. Compared to those days, the training here is like a walk in the park for him. As time flows by, the children keep on running. Rimmer is in shock. Despite Raon's stamina being depleted, the boy stubbornly keeps running like a zombie. It's not just perseverance. Rimmer recognizes those looks. The dark focus of someone who has tasted death many times and survived hell. Rimmer's interest peaks as the story gets tastier. Back on the track, Buren looks back in absolute terror. When that sick bastard sees Raon still breathing down his neck, he wonders how it's physically possible. Putting his faith in the words, "This kid is sick," he heard in his father's room, a cocky Buren loses his temper and decides to resort to cheating. He's unfairly boosting his speed using his aura, leaving the others behind and surging ahead. Only Runin and our stubborn goat Raon remain in the back. While Buren acts like a total spoiled brat, Runin stands as cool and noble as a statue carved from ice. Our boy, on the other hand, doesn't get into pissing contests with anyone. He just keeps his own pace. Anyway, this isn't a marathon, it's a fight for survival, kid. The other wimpy students are collapsing on the side of the road one after another. The fact that Raon is still standing drives them crazy. They're bursting with envy. Because they had all heard he was a sick loser. When someone asks if he's tired, Raon lets out a bitter laugh inside. What do you mean, tired? The kid's already in living dead mode. Because of that damn shaking in his body, his lungs are on the verge of failure, and his heart is about to stop. The only reason he's standing is that legendary fire ring technique, pushing his body to the limit to use every last drop of energy. That parasitic spirit called anger kicks in as soon as it feels Rao's battery running out. He's taking advantage of the situation to seize the body. His goal is to crush that little brat Buren. And that nasty, psychopathic, and manic grin of your soul appears on your face. Raon realizes he's in big trouble, but it's almost too late. Rage hits the boy's system like a sledgehammer in a chilling assault. The impact is very hard. Raon's vision is blurring, his head is spinning, but he has to keep a straight face. He has to be a master of the poker face. Fury is certain that no human being could withstand this power. But Raon is resisting because he knows if he shows the slightest weakness, his soul will be swallowed. If he shows weakness, it'll be his end. And in the end, nothing happens. Raon keeps running, and the demon is fuming with rage. He's asking himself why his anger doesn't drive this kid crazy. But our poor man's situation is truly heartbreaking. He can't even feel his body, every breath like a knife stabbing his lungs. His vision is blurring, he's reached the end of the road. Just as we think he's done for, the instructor's voice cuts through the air like a savior and ends this torture session. When they stop, Buren is still stuck up, looking down on Raon. But Runin, that girl's staring down our guy with eyes like poison. Anger is still in shock, his brain is fried. He's losing his mind, wondering how that kid can still stand after taking all that cold. Raon fires back his answer like a total troll. Didn't I tell you not to interrupt my workout and waste my time, buddy? Turns out that attack fueled Rao's ring of fire. As his body was pushed, the technique leveled up, and suddenly a system screen appears. And a notification pops up. Congratulations. Conditions were met thanks to those manic moves of yours that exceeded your current capacity. Strength, agility, and stamina points increased. Seeing this, the anger literally strengthened the man instead of breaking him. When the kids gather, Rimmer drops the bombshell. Remember when I said I'd cut the number to a quarter? Just kidding, I fooled you guys. If I eliminate that many students on the first day, who will be left? He's mocking them, saying, be a bit logical. Plus, they didn't say this test was the actual elimination test. The guy is such a troll, he loves scaring the life out of his students. But he quickly turns serious and issues a threat. If you stay as sluggish as you are today, I'll kick you all out without mercy. Specifically, he calls out those who fail to follow the full speed ahead command. Only that Jackal Buren used his aura in secret. Don't let him think it went unnoticed. Rimmer warns to do as he says or get the hell out. This business isn't child's play. Is it easy to be insurance? For now, they're all temporary interns. In that big exam 6 months from now, it'll be clear whose head will roll and who will stay. If they survive until then, they'll also pick a valedictorian among them. The competition is heating up. Just as Rimmer was about to slack off and nap on a rock in the woods, he finds Lord Glenn right in front of him. Whoa! The big boss rated. Rimmer reporting. Baran and Ronan are monsters, just as expected. The others are, well, they have the potential to carry the family. The only problem is Rimmer faking being blind. As for Rain, he's having a hard time letting the cat out of the bag. It's finally pouring out. Sir, he says even though this kid ran out of battery and his energy hit zero, he kept running until the end. And he confesses. I've only seen this drive, this willpower, in one person before. That was also you, my lord. With Rimmer bored to death since the energy core shattered, this situation is a new source of fun. His eyes are gleaming. Rimmer mutters behind the lord as he leaves. I'll entrust my future to it. That legendary person will emerge from among these rookies. Lord Glenn is stubborn. He says it's all just luck or a coincidence. He is determined not to believe his grandson. He says that kid will never be a swordsman and brushes him off, but Rimmer isn't buying it. While everyone's floored and exhausted, Rain's heading back to the training hall like a maniac. A group of chatterboxes hear this and start gossiping immediately. The second the kid leaves, they start talking behind his back. He definitely cheated. Otherwise, how could he endure it in that state? They're stirring up trouble, asking if that kid was on medical leave. That Sieghart guy from the side branch is spreading poison. I heard the old man secretly gave him a potion. This is definitely doping. When the kids hear this, they get jealous. What a cheek, he ripped us off. To teach that arrogant brat a lesson. So they decide to go and find their own trouble. Suddenly, they slam Ra hard against a tree. The poor boy looks around in confusion, as if unable to understand the reason for this sudden attack. Turns out these bullies were resentful of a loser, kicked out of the main family, using potions to show off and act so bold. They're approaching, cracking their knuckles. Their intentions are clear. Supposedly, they were just going to have a little chat with Rain as usual. Virat, the king of rage, can't handle this humiliation. While the words are still in their mouths, he's dying to crush those brats' skulls. But Rain, who's a total maniac deep down, is loving every second of this. He thrashes all three and leaves them unrecognizable on the ground. The scene is so brutally beautiful that while the children beg for mercy on the ground, Vrad is almost turning red with excitement. Rain is asking if Bran is behind this trap. They say no, but it's hard to believe because he knows for a fact that Snob hates him. Once the truth is confirmed, he threatens the children with an even worse fate. If you tell anyone about our little chat, you can't even imagine what will happen to you. The brats scatter, trembling with fear, vanishing and thanking their stars they're still alive. At that moment, Instructor Rimmer, lurking behind a tree, watches the show with great delight, feeling as if a replica of young Master Glenn is right before him. This event confirms the suspicion that there's an undiscovered potential hidden among the Rainan Mountains. When she returns home, the system notifications are buzzing. By satisfying the wrath with his brutality, he fulfilled a new condition. Agility increases by 1 point. Of course, Vrad is losing it just because the boy's getting stronger and having a good time. He's shouting that this system is a total joke. Vrath is left in shock when Rain reminds him that he created the system himself. Because no one had stolen your system before. When he realizes Rain doesn't care about his insults, he decides to make him an offer to sway his mind. If he wins, he'll gain status points, but if he loses, his body will be filled with Virat's rage. All they have to do is rank first in the intern exam. Just like Rimmer suggested. He also notices that if Rain wins, he can get a random trait. Vrath is giving a devious explanation. He'll grant one of his powers, but its level will be reduced to fit the kid's weak body. The penalty if she loses is just a tiny spark of anger her soul carries. It may seem small for now, but it could turn into an uncontrollable disaster in the future. Rain realizes it's no lie because the demon stated the terms honestly from the start. The reward seems worth the risk, but this is clearly a poison apple. But relying on his past life experience, our boy is confident he'll take first place and accepts this dangerous offer. A nasty smirk spreads across Vratha's face. Because Ra's plan to slowly take over his body is working perfectly. After a while, the kids start a new exercise hell. They've been running since the crack of dawn, tongues hanging out, and now they're in a lower stance on Rimmer's orders. The instructor pumps them up, shouting that this stance is the foundation of all training. Everyone must hold this position. He says don't move until I say so, then goes and takes a nap just to motivate us. And he gets a parting shot in. You're the ones who will be sweating in the final exam, not me. Some students are fed up with these tedious drills and just want to use swords already. Starts whining like that. After exercise, Blin gathers his crew and they head off to practice sword techniques on their own. If they only practice the basics, their sword skills will get rusty. And Barak keeps poking Are, telling him to just go. But Are knows that swinging a sword is useless at this level. What they need right now isn't a show, it's pure endurance and strength. With that ice planet out there, solidifying the foundations is a matter of life and death for him. While Raon bends steel in the gym, Runin Cillian watches him from the shadows of the laundry room. The girl is stunned. How could a boy who's supposedly sick increase his weights this much in just a few days? That doesn't make any sense. The pace of development is incredible. He's losing his mind wondering if she's using a different stance technique than the others. Failing to resist curiosity, he approaches, but he won't say a word. When he stares like that, he naturally catches Ra's attention. Raon looks as if asking what's up, but there's no answer from the girl. Runin keeps asking himself how this brat got so strong. As he silently eyes the boy, a flash of insight hits him. Ra passes him, sits on the next weight, and starts imitating what he's doing. Raon's strange behavior scares him so much that he just runs away to avoid her. He moves to other machines, but Runin follows him like a shadow. The girl won't leave him alone because Ra felt his body lighten up thanks to that strange scent coming from her. Even if Ra brushes him off and flees to the weights, Runin glides silently like a ghost, following him like a shadow wherever he goes. The reason for this disturbing pursuit is strange. Ra remembers her body becoming light as a feather when she inhaled his scent, as if she had drunk a forbidden potion. With that scent, he lifts superhuman weights like toys, while Raon, disgusted by this creepy interest, finally reacts to those cold eyes behind him. When the boy questions the reason for this creepy harassment, Runin denies it with a soulless expression, as if he wasn't the one who just sniffed him. Giving in to that dark urge echoing within him, Runin decides to follow Raon like a shadow wherever he goes. A short while later, Buren and his sidekick step into the gym. When she sees that loser kid kicked out of the main family hanging out with Runa, her anger levels instantly hit the roof. For a genius like Buren, such simple and repetitive surgical practice meant nothing at all. He was absolutely sure Raon only did these moves because his body was trash and could never reach their superior genetic quality. He gathers the other kids to fire them up so their sword skills don't get rusty for the upcoming exam. As the kids leave, Buren smirks, absolutely certain his way will crush Raz. After a while, a boy named Dorian approaches Ra with hesitant steps. Noticing Runa following him like a ghost, Dorian reveals he's not from the Sieghart bloodline, but just a poor outsider. When Ra reluctantly lets the kid hang out with them, Dorian, trembling with excitement, offers her a cookie as a peace offering. Skeptical Ra tries to return the 10 cookies but freezes when he feels that threatening aura appearing beside him. Runin's hungry beast-like eyes were fixed on Ra's hand. giving those accusing yet terrifying puppy dog eyes. Those psychopathic stares are enough to scare even R.A., and he helplessly hands over the cookie. So this strange trio starts working up a sweat together. Even on runs, they stay glued to each other, their strange bond growing stronger through sweat and pain. Spring is coming, but the training from hell still doesn't end. 6 months have passed since base training began, and Arion spends his days running as if the Grim Reaper is right behind him. Now R.A. lapped everyone except Runin and Ben, leaving them all in the dust. A little more time passes, and that fateful day, the exam day, finally arrives. Families and parents are flocking from everywhere to see how much their children have strengthened. As everyone gathers in the giant arena, Rimmer takes the stage to address the crowd. In the crowd, heavyweights like Sylvia, Helen, and Lord Karen have taken their places. Meanwhile, Red, the King of Wrath, gleefully infiltrates Ra's mind to remind him of the bet. R.A. is certain he'll lose and succumb to his rage because he can't get past Runin and Ben. Arion brushes him off, saying the exam is a completely different arena. Before long, Runin and R.A. find Dorian huddled in a corner, trembling with exam anxiety. The bond between Arion and Runin is so strong that she just hands him cookies out of nowhere. Looking at the types around her, Arion decides she's just a magnet for weirdos and freaks. On the other side, Helen and Sylvia are proud that their son survived 6 months of hellish training and even made friends. Right after, the room goes cold as it's announced the head of the family will be arriving to watch the show. It's so unusual for this guy to show up at events like this. Everyone's just staring at each other in shock. Finally, someone whispers that it's the Lord's first time attending this event. While Rimmer is surprised by the Lord's presence, he learns from Master Glenn that this trial will determine the house's future, and the Lord's attendance is mandatory. As soon as the Lord's heavy presence is felt, Rimmer decides to start the selection exam. But first, he needs to explain what the exam will be. Because he hadn't said a single word to anyone until now. Without any warning, he unleashes a terrifying wave of aura onto the students and says the exam is about piercing through his suffocating spiritual pressure. With a sadistic grin, Rimmer explains that as warriors, they can't escape the spiritual pressure. This test will measure the true strength of their souls. One of the nearby parents says the children's use of auras is more. He's protesting, shouting that it's unfair to conduct a spiritual power test right after what they've just learned. Other parents join the protest and start booing Rimmer. But Rimmer is fed up with their nagging. It explains that spiritual power isn't just an aura's display, but the level of a soul shaped by a warrior's experiences. It seems a true warrior is one who doesn't need an aura. While parents continue to shout and clamor, Lord Glenera enters and cuts through the noise with that icy voice of his. And notes that Rimmer was right. All warriors, with or without aura, develop a unique spiritual power based on the lives they've lived. Depending on training intensity, even those without an aura can exert immense spiritual pressure. The Lord's words cut through all objections, and Rimmer says they can continue the exams now that there are no more complaints. The first victim summoned to the torture chair is Yorun. Rimmer says the mental pressure she exerts will be at a level he can overcome, if he truly pushed his limits during training. With that annoying smirk on his face, Rimmer starts hammering down on the girl with his mental pressure. The power jolts the girl as her face begins to contort in pain. The warning that he'll be disqualified instantly if he uses his aura rings in his ears. And he faces the fact that his only option is the iron will he develop through those painful training sessions. Despite the mental pressure crashing down like ocean waves, our girl doesn't give up and grabs Limmer's hand. Our teacher grins proudly at this success, while the poor girl was about to kiss the floor until Limmer catches her midair. He praises his superhuman effort in training and cheers him on, saying, "Keep it up, champ, you're on the right track." Next up is our coward Dorian, and his face is pale as a ghost, like he's got a date with the Grim Reaper. Same thing from them. In other words, he's expected to use his will in that tiny brain of his to break through this spiritual pressure. But the kid has no willpower at all. When told it's either do it or there's a door, they start panicking, of course. He forces his way into the storm, but collapses before he's halfway through, poor thing. Meanwhile, Jackal Raon senses that the pressure on Dorian is different. Is Limmer giving special treatment whenever it suits them or what? Apparently, this sadistic instructor is adjusting the power of her and Ledin, weighing just how much he can crush them. Fortunately, Dorian manages to crawl to Limmer's feet and offers his congratulations. Even if told to get excited, he can't handle such high praise and ends up barfing right there. Number 1 in terms of nastiness. When it comes to little Lord Sieghart, things change. The pressure released into the room is so heavy. While Buren wonders how the others made it through this hell, his teeth chatter from shivering. Their feet stay frozen to the ground. But Limmer is preparing to hit him with the painful truth. He says you're talented, but you wasted your time on nonsense. Basically, they tried to add floors to a building with a weak foundation. Instead of strengthening their build and mindset, they've spent all this time showing off with sword techniques they don't even understand. When things got tough, he immediately took refuge in the aura. But those tricks won't work here, buddy. Failure is not an option. He remembers his father's icy stares and the scolding he gave his older brother. He's going all in because he knows his father will toss him aside like trash if he fails. He charges forward with all his might. Finally, after tripping and falling flat, he wraps his arms around Limmer's legs. He passed the exam, but Limmer really had the last word. You're only 12, stop acting like a tough guy. He says he needs to work for his age. And finally, the moment you step in, such a spiritual weight crushes you, it feels like the sky has fallen on your head. This pressure is many times heavier than what other kids face. His mother and Helen are on the verge of a heart attack from fear. Even Lord Glenn is in shock. What is Limmer doing to this boy? It's literally attempted murder. Even Raon is under this weight. What kind of a test is this, my friend? They question why. Turns out Limmer saw much greater potential in ours than in the others. He says, teach him a lesson. It's not about muscle power, nephew. It's about how vast your soul is. Luckily, inside Raon isn't just a child, but the dark soul of a master assassin from his past life. And the moment we've been waiting for, our boy cuts through that intense pressure like a hot knife through butter. It's getting right under Limmer's nose. The teacher's like, am I dreaming right now? It doesn't crawl like the others. He walks up calmly and pushes Limmer back by the chest. Whoa. The crowd in the square holds its breath. Limmer and Lord are frozen. Raon with an evil grin. He's asking, did I pass, teacher? Even Curran can't believe how that kid pulled it off. Limmer is still in shock. This guy's brain is fried wondering how that kid escaped this hell without an aura. Finally, he can't resist and asks, who the hell are you? Raon is quite calm. I'm whoever you've been watching for 6 months. Limmer is whining that you should have pushed past your impossible limits. He claims he's putting on more pressure than his own potential, and that he's supposed to be crawling. Limmer goes totally ballistic when Raon just shrugs it off. Anyway, it's time to hand out the report cards now. He will choose someone as he promised. Bun and his father are on edge. And the bomb goes off. The first one back is Raon. Sylvia and Helen start crying tears of joy. The crowd is in shock and the rumor mill is spinning as things get messy. Bun yells, fueled by the authority of indigestion. It's a total lie, I don't accept these results. While Limmer looks on in confusion, Bun rants about being superior to Raon in every way. Power, constitution, potential. This loser has framed me, saying I either cheated or used magic. The crowd starts making a fuss, saying it's impossible for a child to overcome the curse of that deadly ice. With no aura in sight, the protests flare up so much that Instructor Rimmer's famous honesty is even put into question. In the end, as if he were being fair, Ben has the audacity to offer Raon a one-on-one duel to settle the score. Rimmer senses this despair immediately. Because Bun would sell his soul for that top title, and the decision is left to Lord Glenn. The lord of the family turns to Rauna and asks if she will fight to prove to that pack of fools that the results are real. But Ronan's response is a total slap in the face. He says the exam results are already out and rejects this pointless theater. What's the point of throwing a punch if it doesn't help her? The lord is putting the top and turn title on the line to save the situation. And says he'll give him a bronze medal if he wins. Now that shiny medal is finally catching Rao's greedy attention. Because these medals given by Sieghart are not just decorations, but tangible proof of one's achievement. And the rewards that come with these medals are jaw-dropping. Getting a gift like this from a lord is like winning a fortune. This offer is enough to convince Raunu, and the rules of the fight are set. A deadly dance that will only last one round. No aura or weapons allowed, only pure muscle and clashing bones. Let the carnage begin. Buren lunges at Ron's face like a rabid dog, but Ron dodges the punch by a hair, slipping away like a ghost. Shocked by the miss, Buren quickly tries to recover with a kick, but Ron stands like a wall and blocks that attack too. Buren brags, shouting that he's using the cool-sounding attacking tiger technique his daddy taught him. While Ron stays on the defensive, Buren keeps landing his blows. The crowd thinks Ron is frozen in fear, poor things. But Buren's real pain isn't physical. Being pushed by a weak loser from a side family is piercing through his inflated ego. He's making oaths to himself. He'd rather die than lose that first-place title to someone like Ron. And in the dark corners of his mind, he flashes back to his father throwing his brother out like trash, simply for being weak. The only thought in his head while fighting is the sick pressure of his father's judging eyes on him and the need to prove himself, while Ron continues to parry every incoming attack. But his failure to respond isn't out of cowardice. With that crafty intellect, he's analyzing the flow and technique of Buren's punches. Like a hunter, he memorizes every move of his prey. When Ron suddenly stops, Buren, drunk with victory, thinks his opponent has given up and makes his final move to finish him off. But Ron meets his punch with his own, and Buren's hand is blown back by that terrible collision. And he lands such a lethal punch to the stomach that a scream mixed with saliva erupts from Buren's mouth. The crowd is in terror. Even Buren's father is stunned. No one, including Lord Glenn, can understand how Ron countered that attacking tiger fist with the exact same technique. As Buren writhes on the ground, he asks where you learned this technique. Ron brazenly says he was just shown. And he states that you're just imitating those clumsy moves. With this answer, the crowd begins to buzz like a beehive. They're wondering how a brat like this could use the legendary Tiger Fang True Fist just by watching, and what kind of monster he is. While Buren still hasn't recovered from the punch, Rimmer is now absolutely certain that Ron is a true gem. Ron, in counteracting the tiger strike with a reverse spin and neutralizing its power, pushes the limits of his mind. In Rimmer's eyes, the fact he achieved this just by watching someone else is the very deviant talent Sieghart has sought for years. The potential to sit at the continent's peak has finally been found. After a short silence, Ron is declared the winner as the results are undeniable. In front of everyone, Sylvia, unable to control her emotions, rushes forward in tears and hugs Ron so tightly it's as if she's breaking his bones. While Ron responds to her with the same warmth, only that loyal servant remains by the side of Buren, the loser. His biggest fear comes true. His father looks at him like he's a bug and turns away. That night, a deathly silence falls over Buren's house. Finally, his father breaks the suffocating silence and reminds him how he ordered him to place first in the internship exam. And he's asking if you, who told everyone not to lose, are going to embarrass yourself by performing even worse than that low-born brat. He ruthlessly throws it in his face that he's a son of failure and has already trashed the very first chance he got. He's drilling it into his head that his only chance for redemption is to bring back that damn title during the final graduation exam. As his father leaves the room, Buren realizes he can't waste his last chance if he wants the luxury life of a core family member. The rage inside him erupts like a volcano, and instead of his own inadequacy, he starts pinning all the blame on that ominous Ron. His arrogant mind can't grasp how he fell behind anyone else, despite how hard he worked. Wandering in despair and hatred, his feet drag him to the training center's gym during a fit of rage. The hall is deserted since it's exam day. While Buren works, his eyes wander to the lockers, and Ron's locker draws him in like a dark magnet. It's not like he's stealing, after all, what's the harm in taking a quick look inside? But the sight Buren beholds makes his blood run cold. Exactly 10 pairs of torn shoes are lying on the ground. It's unbelievable how Ronan wore out all these shoes in just 6 months. Buren's memory flosses back, and he remembers how he always saw Raon. While he was just swinging his sword for show, that maniac was training in the gym around the clock at an inhuman pace. While Buren relaxed in the lodge, there was only one meaning behind Ron's attitude. He is the one. Sieghart, and Buren is just a shadow. He's left wallowing in defeat and just slinks away. After a while, our hot-headed king of rage takes the stage. He's fuming because he lost the bet. He's lived for centuries but keeps muttering that he's never seen such a man. Finally, Rana can't take it and asks what kind of man you are, but the answer isn't satisfying. Just like that, the system's victory bells ring. Raon won the bet. Statistics are flying everywhere. Each goes up by 2 points. Plus, the cool ability called Snowflower Perception of Rage now belongs to Raon. Our demon is acting all high and mighty, saying this divine ability is too much for a puny mortal like you to handle. Supposedly it awakens the senses, but since the talent is only 1 star, it'll only increase Raon's senses by 1%. The King of Wrath is bragging about how he cheated the system to boost his senses tenfold. But there's something strange about your skill's name. The perception of a snowdrop? Raon couldn't resist asking why the name was so complicated. While the demon claims the name is magnificent, Raon hits him with the harsh truth. Your taste sucks, man. This remark makes the spirit lose its temper. Just then, an urgent message arrives from the main building. The Lord is calling for Raon himself. This news makes Sylvia's heart jump into her throat. The poor woman is on edge. She's afraid something might happen to her son. Fortunately, the story goes, no problem, sis, Master Sieghart will personally present the bronze medal, boosting her spirits. When they arrive at the throne room, Lord Glenn looks sour again, like he's not happy at all with the situation. But I've already given my word. He gives the medal and says if you return it, he'll grant you a proper wish in exchange. Would our sneaky boy miss an opportunity like that? Right after grabbing the medal, he shoots the question. What do I need to do to get my mom back to her old self? The Lord is in shock. The old man froze at Raon's audacity. When Glenn confirms if he truly wants Sylvia back in the main family, he explains it's only possible through a jaw-dropping achievement that the entire household would respect. But easier said than done. In Lord Glenn's eyes, earning appreciation in this house is like building a ladder to the moon, especially for someone as inexperienced as Raon. But instead of scaring Raon, this impossibility makes him thrilled. Lord Glenn thanks him for the answer, returns the bronze medal, and turns to walk away. Just before leaving, the Lord calls out. You could have used that medal to get the answer for free, kid. You blew it. Besides, he hasn't even asked for his reward yet. Raon thinks of what he needs most right now and requests a solid cultivation technique. But the answer he got is annoying. The instructors will teach him a few things during basic training. Our boy says don't come to me with those made-up techniques. He needs an aura technique far superior to what's taught in basic training. And he wants a technique from Lord worthy of the bronze medal's glory. The shadow cultivation technique he learned in his previous life just isn't enough anymore. If he's to return Sylvia to her rightful place and take that filth Darius's head, he needs a much more savage power. The Lord snaps his fingers, and the walls split open to reveal a mysterious library. The shelves are packed with books. Raon's eyes widen in shock, books towering over his head. Lord Glenn doesn't miss the chance to show off. He says these are just a tiny fraction of the Sieghart archive. To find the book he needs most, all he has to do is stand in the middle of the room and raise his hands. He says a prayer while doing as he's told. He hopes the upcoming technique will be better than that old shadow technique. And suddenly, a book flies off the shelf on its own and drifts right into Rao's palms. But look at this, just a tattered old scrap of a book. But seeing this choice, Lord Glenn and his steward turn pale as ghosts. Lord, he can't fathom how that special book ended up in Raon. Just then, flames blast from the book toward Raon. Our guy is confused, like, I asked for technique, not barbecue, what's this about? A blinding flash of light erupts as they open the page. Raon is caught completely off guard. Lord looks on, mesmerized, watching the wild fire erupting from the book. Suddenly, a vision appears in Raon's mind. The dusty veil of the past is lifting. Lord Glenn is on screen. Guards report Sylvia has left the house. But in a voice like Lord Pooh's, he says, I don't care, it's none of my business. For him, the growth of the house comes before everything else. Word is that the Lord viewed emotions as a luxury, and in those dark days, focusing only on power, he reached a combat strength that surpassed even the demon's limits. But in exchange for this power, he lost a piece of his humanity. Later in the vision, grim news reaches Lord Glenn. His son-in-law and grandson were ambushed and slaughtered by that cursed cult called Eden. That's the moment when that ice statue starts to tremble. Lord somehow managed to regain his emotions, but to no avail. There's no power to turn back time, and he finally decides. Despite all the hate and insults he'd face, he was going to sacrifice himself to protect this brat. But our poor Raon was terribly confused. While I was wondering what kind of book this is, it went poof and vanished. It was as if it possessed Raon's body like a cursed spirit, God forbid. The Lord suddenly interrogated him. What the hell did you just do? It looked like leather, but ours played dumb and went into, I really don't know, mode. All he knew was that the strange technique that just vanished had seeped into his mind like a virus and taken root. Lord cornered him, saying, If you haven't read it, tell me the name of the technique, shrimp. Testing to see if he was lying. Raon mumbled for a bit and then blurted out, Million flames. At that moment, the famous annoying system screen popped up right in front of him, just like in the games. It said 1,000,000 flames burned into your mind, you face the fires of eternity. It was totally normal for him to feel like his brain was fried, honestly. So in the Sieghart library, they teach aura techniques by injecting them into the brain like that? What a savage method. Lord Glenn asked for one last confirmation on whether you really remember the crap you pulled. Sorry, I mean that intel you got. I remember when he got the answer, Lord Afrin said. You've snatched the bronze medallion prize, now get out of my sight, and sent him away. When Raon left, the rock in the back just froze in horror, like, how on earth did that kid stomach that giant book? That book was no ordinary thing. It belonged to that maniacal founding lord of the house. It was like a monster emerging from the dusty pages of history. In Sieghart history, no one dared to even touch that first master's technique. They couldn't even get close to it, let alone read it. No one could have ever imagined that what was thrust into his hands would be that cursed million flame technique. Look at that, the butler was about to have a panic attack. He started trembling, fearing they'd eat Lady Sylvia and Raon alive if they heard this. But Amma put Lord Glenn's paranoia to rest right then and there, saying that no one would suspect a thing. Meanwhile, Raon already felt those dark, ancient secrets from the book being fully imprinted into his mind. Lord says that technique was rotting on the shelf. If a maniac like Raon hadn't come along, it would have just rotted away, useless to everyone. Times are changing, I guess. But Raon couldn't figure out why that icy lord was doing her such a favor and being so generous. This power in your hands was worth more than a medallion of silver or gold. This was literally the biggest jackpot ever. This was on a level to compete with the legendary firebond technique. I mean, it wasn't the kind of thing you just learned for fun. It was a lethal power. The only problem was no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't pull herself together. Raon got paranoid, thinking he'd be crushed under the load and his brain couldn't handle it. Just as he thought he couldn't grasp a technique of that level, that troublesome entity in his head, Wrath, sensed things were going south. Normally he'd mock me, but this time he actually hyped me up, saying, Son, you found a sweet technique, just hang in there and do it. I'm surprised. Because if development was interrupted, there was a risk of paralysis, becoming bedridden, or even turning into a vegetable. It's serious, game over.